The following Fallout 4 discussion video is brought to you by G2A.com. Click the link down below for cheap games. Salutations, my Fallout lovers. It is Matty here today with a Fallout 4 discussion video. Today we are going to be talking about a little bit of news that surfaced during the week at E3, and I'm a little bit late to it because I was out at E3, so this happened and I didn't even realize until now. So this is some big stuff because Todd Howard has admitted that the dialogue system in Fallout 4 was less successful, and I'm going to roll the interview clip of him saying it so you guys can hear it from him, interpret it for yourself, and then afterwards I will discuss with you guys my thoughts on what he has said.
And we'll have some successes. You know, I think the shooting in Fallout 4 is really good. I think it plays really well. Obviously, the way we did some dialogue stuff, that didn't work as well. But it was, I think, you know, I know the reasons we tried that to make a nice interactive conversation, but less successful than other things in the game. And so for us, we take that feedback, and I think it's I think long term.
So before we get into his initial statement, he follows that up by saying it's like the choices you have in the end when we have an opportunity with something like Far Harbor, like, okay, how many ways can it end? Let's give them more choice with something like that. And so it's not just a one-off, meaning Fallout 4 comes out and then we forget about it. I think it's an ongoing thing, and I think that kind of feedback we get is really, really helpful. And you're right that everybody does have an opinion, and I think that's good. And so what I'm seeing here is Bethesda saying, all right, we messed up. We don't think that the dialogue system in Fallout 4 really worked out either, but we're going to try to improve it. For example, like I said with the Far Harbor DLC in my review, I think that was what Fallout needed. It showed that the ideas in Fallout 4 could have worked if done correctly, giving more choice, giving more options, giving more dialogue trees and stuff. And that's what Far Harbor did. And I think that's what Todd Howard's getting at, that yeah, we messed up with the base game, and that does not excuse anything. But what they did is try to amend those mistakes in the DLC to show that they are listening. They're trying to improve with their challenges that they present their team. They said they wanted to do this system to have a nice interactive conversation, which makes sense. A lot of people were for it. Some people are still for it. Most people are against it, it seems. And I understand both sides entirely. Me personally, I would rather the silent protagonist with a lot more choice, a lot more writing focus. That's just how I am with Fallout, and I think everyone is. I think with what Todd Howard is saying here, it can be an almost guarantee that Fallout will never see a voiced protagonist again. It's something he wanted to try, and like he said, he's thinking in the long term. So now I think that's what he's basically saying is, yeah, well, it didn't work now, and I don't think it's gonna work again, because I think it'll just be kind of a negative response at that point. It'll show that they're just refusing to listen, where I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't a voice protagonist in the next Fallout game. And that just shows how much this series has evolved, where now we're talking about whether or not there will be voice protagonists. I kind of feel bad for the older fans, the elitists, as a lot of us like to call it, who have played Fallout since the first one released and have seen it just turn into this, where they're like, oh my gosh, my series that I've grown up with is now being discussed as a voice protagonist type series. Who would have thought? And I think Bethesda does a good job at listening to feedback personally, and I think a lot of people try to forget that, given the fact that in Fallout 3 New Vegas, one of the biggest complaints hands down was the gameplay. The shooting was terrible, the gameplay was terrible, yada yada yada. Fallout 4 fixed that, but it left behind a lot of the dialogue stuff. And so I think a lot of people are just asking for that healthy balance where we want some good gameplay, but we really want what makes Fallout a Fallout game. Give us our silent protagonist, let us be who we are. But I can see what Bethesda was going for. They were trying to nail a story, because a lot of people also felt that Fallout 3's story was lacking. And so now you see what I'm getting at, where they were trying to amend a lot of mistakes, and this is all kind of old news. But with the dialogue system being up in the discussion again, I figured it was worth pointing out that Bethesda was, in a sense, trying to provide us what we wanted. It's just that they didn't execute properly. And for me personally, I just hope from the start that they just go ahead, get rid of the voice protagonist. I met some fantastic friends through them, but you know what? At the end of the day, what really obviously matters is us getting a great game that we all can get behind and support for the long run. And I don't think that a voice protagonist is what a Fallout game personally needs. I don't think it was ever a concern whether or not Elder Scrolls 6 would have a voice protagonist. Maybe this is also consideration to see how it would work in one of these new major projects that Bethesda Game Studios is working on. Perhaps because I know that people like to say that Bethesda takes equal care of both Elder Scrolls and Fallout, but Elder Scrolls is Bethesda's baby, where Fallout they bought, and while they do treat it with great care, I feel personally that at the end of the day, they were able to experiment more with Fallout because they didn't have that direct emotional attachment excitement they had with, for example, an Elder Scrolls game. So I don't think those chances would be taken with an ES game, and it's also just impossible with the male and female and then how many races are in the game. It's just, you can't do a voice protagonist in an Elder Scrolls game, personally, if you ask me. So at the end of the day, yeah, I admire them for taking the chance, doing what they want. I'd rather them take chances, try to innovate with a series, try new things, get more fans involved, and maybe fail at that than just sitting back in their comfort zone and doing absolutely nothing and staying in that same rhythm that gets monotonous. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this in the comments down below. This will be a very interesting discussion, I believe. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. The links are, as always, in the description. Check out sugarbomb.com, the place by Bethesda fans for Bethesda fans. Other than that, stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.